In this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to Bloom. So what is Bloom? Bloom is an email opt-in plugin that places opt-in forms on your website, allowing your visitors to subscribe to your email list. Now that email list can be handled via third-party email marketing systems such as MailChimp, Aweber, Constant Contact, and so on. So Bloom is kind of the bridge between your website and those mailing list softwares. So just to give you an example of an opt-in form that Bloom might add to your site, I'm going to go over to the Bloom demo here. And on the right, you see this little fly-in box. Here's an example of an opt-in form. You can add an image, add a message. People can type in their email address and subscribe right to your list. So Bloom adds these forms in different ways, whether they be a fly-in box like this, or a pop-up, or an opt-in box below your posts, or in your sidebar, in your footer, and so on. Bloom has a bunch of different opt-in types. These opt-in types can be placed on different parts of your website and can even be triggered based on different user interactions. For example, this fly-in box might only be placed on my blog, and it might only be triggered once a person finishes reading the post. So that's just one example. So I'm also going to show you a pop-up. So here's an example of another opt-in form. As a pop-up, full screen, lightbox, modal window. Okay, so there's a couple examples of what an opt-in form is, and I've explained what an opt-in form does. Now I'm going to walk you through some basic steps about how to add your first opt-in form, how to integrate it with an email marketing system, and then how to customize that form a bit. So this is going to be a very basic overview of just how Bloom works, but rest assured, each of the points that I'm touching to in basic detail, I go into in-depth detail in our other tutorials. So if you need clarification on any point during the process, go back to our main documentation page and delve into one of those specific tutorials. For example, I have a specific tutorial on pop-ups, a specific tutorial on design customization, on location settings, a specific tutorial on how to set up each different account type, and so on. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do after you've installed your Bloom plugin, go to your dashboard and look for the Bloom tab here and click that. This will bring you to the main Bloom settings page. Now the home page is a list of all your active opt-ins. Well, since I haven't created any yet, there's no opt-ins to display, and you can add your first opt-in form by clicking the new opt-in button here. So I'm going to click that to add our first form. And when you click that, you're going to get a list of all the different opt-in types that Bloom supports. Now I've shown you the pop-up window, the fly-in box. Well, there's also 4 other ones, which is below post. This will place an opt-in box below your posts. Inline, this will generate a shortcode that you can use to place your opt-in box anywhere on your website just by copying and pasting that shortcode into the WordPress post editor. There's also a locked content, which just like the inline creates a shortcode. And you can use this within your posts and pages to lock specific parts of the page and require users to subscribe before they get access to that content. For example, let's say I have a web design blog and I've created this great free ebook and it's very popular. People are loving it. They're coming to my blog and downloading it. That's great. It's generating traffic. But what if I also want to have that free resource generate subscribers to my email list? Well, what I could do is simply wrap the download button in the locked content and say, subscribe to download. They'll subscribe. Once they subscribe, that locked piece of content, which is the download button, appears and they can download it. So it's like a paywall to your content, and you can lock anything you want and encourage people to subscribe. Next up is the widget. So you can generate an opt-in and it'll create a widget automatically, and you can place that widget in any widget-ready area of your site, such as your sidebar or your footer. So to start out, I'm just going to create a pop-up, which is perhaps the most effective and the most popular opt-in type. So the first screen you're going to see, which is one of 3 screens, is the setup screen. After that, you're going to move on to design settings and display settings. And at any point during the opt-in creation process, you can bounce back and forth between these 3 tabs. So during basic setup, the first thing you're going to do is name your opt-in. I'm just going to call it pop-up. This is just for your reference. When you see the opt-in in your list of opt-ins, this name is going to show up. So name it whatever you like. let's say you've created multiple pop-ups and you have these pop-ups displaying on different aspects or different parts of your site targeted to different visitors. You might say, name your pop-up more specifically. For example, let's say I was only adding this to the blog, and the blog pop-up subscribe to our RSS, RSS to email list. Well, I might name this pop-up blog or whatever. But I'm only creating one, so I'm just going to call it pop-up. Okay, the next step, once you've named your pop-up, is to connect that form to a list. So every opt-in form has to connect to a list. So when people subscribe, they get added to a specific list. And that list is housed within your email marketing software. For example, if you're using MailChimp, you might have multiple lists in your MailChimp account, and you're going to need to connect that MailChimp account to Bloom, and that'll give Bloom access to your lists, and it'll allow Bloom to subscribe people to those lists. Another popular software is Aweber. Now, Bloom supports a bunch of different account types, and we're adding more all the time. At launch, there's 12 different account types, and you can also just input a custom HTML form if your specific email marketing software is not supported. So like I said, Aweber, Constant Contact, Campaign Monitor, and so on. So let's say I wanted to use Aweber. I'm going to click Aweber, and then if I haven't integrated an account yet with Bloom, for Aweber, you're going to see this account button, add account button. I'm going to click that, and it's going to go through some steps to help Bloom authorize with Aweber, which will give us access to their API. Now, depending on the account type you've selected, there will be different authorization steps. And so we have a tutorial that goes through every single account type and how to authorize them. In most cases, you're going to have to log into your account and get an API key and then copy and paste that API key. So yeah, that's what we're going to do with Aweber. And so before connecting Aweber, you're just going to name your account. Again, this is just for your reference. So I'm just going to call it Aweber. And then you're going to go through the authorization steps. So here it says, click here to authorize. I'm going to click that. It's going to ask me to log in. So I'm going to log in and click the allow access button, and then copy and paste this code, come back over to Bloom, paste in the code, and click authorize. So that's an example of generating the API key, putting it into Bloom, and authorizing. Now Aweber knows that Bloom has been granted access, and you're going to get a list of all the different lists within your account. So within our Aweber account, we have 3 different lists, and Bloom has already pulled those in, and you can choose which list you want to connect to this form. So like I said, you might have multiple lists in your account. For example, let's say I have a web design website. I sell web design services, and I also have a blog. So we have a blog, and I want people to be able to subscribe to my blog, and that list gets added to a list that is an RSS to email list. So they get constant updates of our blog updates and so on. So I might want to, if I'm adding this to our blog, I might want to use that list. I might have a different list, like an autoresponder that is like a more of a sales autoresponder that gets placed on our sales page. So like I said, you might have different lists for different purposes. So just choose whatever list you want to add to this form. So I'm going to choose this list. And once you've added your account, chosen your list, you can move on to the design settings. So Bloom has a ton of different design settings, and these design settings can be used to create just about anything. So to help you along, we've actually done a lot of work in creating a bunch of pre-made templates using those design settings. So instead of just making you start from scratch, we've actually created a bunch of great starting points that you can use. So these are our pre-made templates. And before you move on to the design settings, you can just choose one of these pre-made layouts to start with. So if you want to kind of start from scratch, or just start from kind of like a really basic form, we have these two rows here. It's kind of like just basic, light layout is a basic dark layout. And you can see there's different kind of orientation options here. If you want your form on the right, or if you want the form on the bottom, image top, image left, and so on. So just kind of pick a basic form that looks good to you, and you can just use that, or you can customize it after you've selected it. So I'm going to select this form here. So it's a red form, red background, dark form, centered image. Looks good to me. So I've selected that. and then I'm going to move on to customize it. Bloom comes with a ton of different design options that you can use to customize basically every part of your opt-in form. You can adjust the title and the message that appear in the form. You can adjust the image that appears, as well as change the image orientation. You can adjust the load-in animation of the image. There's basic opt-in styling, such as background color. You can choose from dozens of Google fonts for your header font and body font. You can adjust the text color, the corner style, as well as add a border. There's some basic form setup options, such as the location of the form within the opt-in box, such as on the bottom or the right. You can adjust the text that appears, the placeholder text within each field. You can adjust the button text color. There's basic form styling, such as form background color, button color, and text color. There's also an edge style, which is purely an aesthetic option. Now, this separates the text content from the form content, and you can add like a zigzag edge or a little caret edge and so on. And then you can adjust the footer text. You can add footer text below the form itself, such as a disclaimer, maybe a link to your privacy settings. You can adjust the success message that appears after someone successfully subscribes to your list. And you can even add custom CSS. Now, at any time during the design process, you can click this preview button here to get a glimpse at what your opt-in form looks like based on the changes you've made. Right now, we see the basic pre-made template that we selected with that red background color, that image above the text, the dark form background, and some inline form fields. But let's change some of those settings just to show you what they do, and we can adjust the message. So I might add something here, such as subscribe to our newsletter to gain access to our free ebook. I might find that message works better, is more compelling. And if we preview that, you'll see that the message has been updated. Moving on to the image settings, you can adjust where the image appears. Right now it's appearing above the text, but if I wanted to change that to below the text or to the right or the left of the text, I could do that. So I'm going to change it to below. Get a preview, it's below the text now instead of above. You can also change that image, of course, if you want to upload your own image. And you can adjust the animation as well. So right now the image is kind of sliding up as it animates in, but I could change that to a different animation or even disable the animation altogether. So I'm going to change it to flip, and I'll show you what that looks like. You see the image kind of flips in there. Looks nice, might catch the visitor's eye a bit more, so I'm going to stick with that. Moving on to the opt-in styling, right now we have that red background color, but that can be changed, so I might change it to blue. And you can see, changes to blue. You can adjust the font. Like I said, you can choose from dozens of Google fonts. You can choose the text color. So right now I have light text because my background color is dark. But let's say I change to a light background color. Well, I probably want to change my text to dark so it shows up nicely, as you can see there. But I like that blue background color, so I'm going to go back to blue and keep my text as light. Now you can adjust the corners. You can change to rounded corners if you like. And you can also add a border. So right now I have no border, but if I wanted to add a border, you can do so. You can add a full border. You can add a border just to the top or left or right or bottom. You can add that border to any edge of your opt-in form. So sometimes it looks nice just to add it to one side, give it a little accent color depending on your branding. So maybe I wanted to accent that blue with a bit of like an orange stripe. Well, I might just add a top border of orange. That might look nice. In fact, I'm going to try that right now. So I'm going to change to top border. And then you'll see that these new border settings load in once I've selected a border. So I'm applying a border to the top, and I'm going to choose orange as my color. And I'm going to see what that looks like. See if I add a nice little orange stripe to the top. Looks good. I'm going to stick with that. Oh, you can also adjust the border style. So right now we just have this basic solid color, but if you wanted to change to something else, you could. We have a dashed, a double border, inlaid border, and then this one's a little fun. This is the the classic snail mail letter style, which is these stripes, and you see this pretty often. It looks nice, it's kind of fun. So actually I'll enable that to see what that looks like. To give you a little example, you see it has that striped look at the top there. I'm going to go back to my solid edge and then continue down to the form setup. Here you can adjust the form orientation, which affects where the form appears within the box. So right now the form is appearing on the bottom, below my text and below my image, but you can change that to right or left. So if I put it on the right, See what that looks like. It adds to the right here. The input fields get centered vertically. Looks great. You can also choose to enable the name field. So right now we just have the email field enabled, but if you want to also add a name field, you could, depending on how much information you'd like to collect from your visitors. You can adjust the text that appears in the input fields, the placeholder text. So if you want to use a different language, for example, or just change it to something else, feel free to do so. Next is the button text color, which you can do light or dark. So if you want to change the text within the button to something else, you can do that. Finally, moving on to form styling. Here you can adjust the actual form. So the form is that thing, going back to the preview, the form is this area on the right. So you can adjust the colors here independently of the whole form. So the whole box, I mean. So the whole box might have this blue background color, but the form, on the other hand, has this dark gray, and you can adjust that independently. So right now it's, like I said, set to that dark gray, and our button color is set to that little blue-green color. We can adjust those if we wanted. You know, since I added that orange highlight color on the top, I think I want to stick with that color for the button as well. I like this combination of blue and orange, and so I'm going to change that. So I've adjusted the button color, and you can see now these match. I'm liking this. It looks really good. You could adjust the form background color as well. So maybe we don't want to use gray. Maybe we want to use a darker variation of that blue we used earlier. So I'm going to just select a nice dark blue here and see what that looks like. You can see our form has been changed to blue. This is looking really good. I'm liking it. Let's move on. Next is the edge style. So this is the edge that separates that form area we were just talking about with the main text area. And there's different kind of like fun edges you can use here. So let me apply this zigzag edge as an example. You can see it kind of adds a zigzag appearance on the right here. Looks pretty cool. So depending on the style of your website, you can choose between these different edge styles. This one's nice, this nice arrow edge. I like that one, so I'm going to stick with it. Next up is the footer text. This adds text below your form. Like I said, you can link to your privacy policy, or maybe add some disclaimer like we won't spam you, or unsubscribe at any time, something to give reassurance to your visitors. Next is the success message. Like I said, this appears after someone is successfully subscribed. So you could adjust this, change the language, or change the wording, and so on. And finally, custom CSS. If you're CSS savvy and you want to add even more custom styling to this form, feel free to do so right there. All right, so that concludes the design settings. And once you've finished designing your form, the next step is the display settings. And like I said, you can bounce back and forth between these at any time. So if I for whatever reason change my mind, I actually want to, change the list, I can go back to setup and or back to design and so on. But if you keep clicking next, we're going to guide you through all three sections. So let's move on to display settings. Whereas the design settings affected what your pop-in looked like, the display settings affect where and when your pop-up appears on your website. So you can have this opt-in form only appear on specific post types, such as posts or pages, or you might have this opt-in form only appear on certain posts within certain categories of your website, or you might have this post appear only on specific posts, or a couple, choice pages, or you could even say, display this on all of my pages, except don't display it on these few pages, such as my contact form page, which I just think isn't a place that would be very effective for a pop-up. So you have full control over exactly where these pop-ups appear, exactly where these opt-in forms appear, and you can create as many opt-in forms as you want on your website and target them to specific areas, which means you could have specific, lists and specific offers only apply to certain visitors on certain pages, and so you have a lot of control over that, and you can really increase the conversion rate quite significantly if you tailor your pop-ups to the pages that the visitors are visiting. For example, if someone visits a post about email marketing and your pop-up happens to be offering a free ebook about email marketing, well, then someone is much more likely to subscribe to that list. So that's what these display settings are all about. It's all about having full control over where each specific opt-in form appears. But that being said, if you don't want to get too advanced, that's not a problem. If you just want to have one pop-up for your whole site that says, hey, subscribe to our list, it's just kind of this blanket offer, that's fine too. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to create a very basic pop-up that displays everywhere. So those are the display settings. It affects where your pop-up appears. There's also something called load-in settings, and that's what you see here. Now, these load-in settings only apply to pop-ups and fly-ins, and what these do, they don't affect where your pop-up displays. They affect when it displays on the page it has been chosen for. And when the pop-up is displayed is decided based on different user interactions that we call triggers. So you can trigger the pop-up based on a visitor interaction, and I'm going to go over each of those triggers now briefly, but we have a dedicated tutorial that talks all about triggers because I think these are really exciting, and they give you a lot of control over targeting specific visitors based on their interactions. And like I said, this is another setting you can really play with to help increase your conversion rates. So starting off with the first trigger, which is trigger after time delay. So what this does is, say you have a pop-up on a page. If you enable trigger after time delay, that pop-up is going to pop up automatically after a specific amount of seconds, which is the delay in seconds options you see here. So I have this trigger enabled. I have the delay set to 20 seconds. That means that pop-up is going to display automatically to everyone who visits that page after they've been on that page for 20 seconds. Next up is the trigger after inactivity. This will only display a pop-up after a user has become idle for a certain amount of seconds, and you can adjust the idle timeout here. So in this case, if someone's visiting your page, they get distracted, they leave, they've been gone for 15 seconds. When you come back, they'll be greeted with that pop-up, and hopefully it's enough to re-grab their attention. Next up is the trigger at bottom of the post. This is one of my favorite options because it only targets engaged users, and it never upsets the reading experience of the user because it only displays when they're done reading the post, when they've reached the bottom of your post. So this is if you're creating a blog pop-up, I'd really recommend having this trigger enabled because, like I said, unlike the trigger after time delay, this could potentially pop up when they're halfway through your post and be kind of distracting. They're not very likely to subscribe, or they're less likely to subscribe when they're in the middle of reading. They're probably just going to close it really quickly and get back to reading because, they're engaged, they want to keep reading. Well, this one, on the other hand, will only pop up after they're finished reading, so that's great. Next up is almost another layer, another level of engagement. This only affects people who have both finished reading your post and have gone on to comment on your post. That means this person is very engaged. They're very likely to subscribe because they've not only enjoyed your post, they've engaged with it personally, and they might have a vested interest in following up with that post and your future posts. So this will display a pop-up after they're finished commenting on your post. Next is the trigger after scrolling. This is much like the trigger at the bottom of the post, except it gives you specific control over at what point down the page that pop-up appears. So if you want to say trigger after they get 50% down the page, 10% down the page, 100% down the page, this gives you full control over that. Next up is the trigger after purchasing. Now, so if someone comes to your site and you have an e-commerce website built on WooCommerce and someone purchases a WooCommerce product, this will display the pop-up after they're done purchasing. And what's so cool about this is that you can create a specific pop-up and add people to a specific list. That, let's say this is your sales funnel list, or your, it's integrated with your CRM system or whatever, and you have this autoresponder to try to increase customer retention with this list. So this is a very specific list only for your customers, and so you create a pop-up that says, "Hey, sign up to our email list and get 10% off your next purchase." Well, that's probably not a pop-up you'd want to display to everyone. It's not going to make sense to your blog readers, right? So in this case, we can display it only after they've purchased, right? So this is a great way to get customers on your list and incentivize them to sign up, and to only display those offers to people who have purchased a product. Next up is the display once per session option. So this is a very important option because what it does is it prevents any pop-up from being displayed more than one time per session per visitor. So if someone's on your website and you have this pop-up that's enabled on every single post on your site, and every time someone goes to a new post, that pop-up keeps popping up, it's going to get very annoying. And so if you have the type of pop-up that's kind of like enabled on your whole website, I would highly recommend enabling this so that they only see the pop-up once, and once they close it, it's really closed. And then you can adjust the session duration as well. So say, well, someone visited my site, they close the pop-up, but I don't want to give up on that user forever, right? I still want to, if they keep coming back to my site, there's still a chance they might subscribe. So I want to change the session duration so let's say 1 week. That means that this pop-up is going to be only displayed once per week, and you can adjust that in days to however many days you like. Finally, there's the hide on mobile option. This will simply disable the opt-in on mobile. So as an example, let's say you have a post where you have an opt-in form at the bottom of the post, you have a pop-up, and you have a fly-in. That might be okay on desktop because there's lots of real estate, lots of room. But on a mobile, all those things are gonna just kind of stack up on top of each other and take up the whole screen. It's gonna be kind of annoying. There's really no reason to have 3 different opt-in forms on mobile. So if, let's say, this was the 3rd opt-in form you're adding to your site, you might want to hide it on mobile and just keep one enabled on mobile. Okay, so those are the load-in settings. And like I said, these will only display, or the triggers will only display on pop-ups and fly-ins. So if you're creating a below the post opt-in, you're not going to see these trigger settings. Next, we go on to the display settings, and like I alluded to earlier, the display settings affect where on your website your opt-in form appears. And you can get very specific with how you target where this opt-in form appears, or you can get very in-specific if you want to keep it easy. So the first thing you see here on display on is everything. If you want this pop-up to display everywhere, go for it. Just select everything. I mean, if you have a basic blog or you have a basic website where you don't need to get too crazy, it's totally fine to just display it everywhere, especially if you have this display once per session enabled. That's great. But if you want to get more specific, you can. So let's say I want to display not on everything. In fact, this is a pop-up I only want to be displayed to my blog readers, and so I'm only going to display it on posts. So I have only just the posts enabled. Everything else is disabled, so when they come to my homepage, when they read my about page, when they go to contact me, the pop-up is not going to be displayed there. It's only going to be displayed when they go to my blog and read my posts. Moving on, you even have specific control over which categories within your post that pop-up appears. So I could deselect certain categories if I like, or just have certain pop-ups be displayed on certain categories. So like I said, you can get very specific here. Let's say you have a blog and you have lots of different topics here you talk about, right? Let's say you have a topic about email marketing, a category about email marketing. You might want to display a pop-up, and in the header talk about email marketing. It's going to be more engaging to your readers, while you might have another, category about fashion. Well, that pop-up about email marketing is not going to be very interesting to those people, to those visitors. You might want to create a new pop-up that targets that category specifically. Okay, moving on to the individual post and page targeting. So even though I've only chosen to display on posts, you can actually still target individual pages and individual posts, and even exclude individual posts. So if you click into here, display on pages, you can choose individual pages that you want your post to appear on, and you can even search for those pages here, and they'll pop up. Click it, and you're done. Now this pop-up is going to be displayed on the specific page only. You can also choose to disable certain posts. So right now, I have this pop-up being displayed in every single post on my website and every single category on my website. But if for whatever reason I want to have this opt-in form excluded on a certain post or a certain few posts, you can go through here and select certain posts you don't want the pop-up to appear on. Finally, you can target specific posts. So let's say that I actually didn't select posts, right? I actually selected pages, and so in this case, the pop-up is only being displayed on pages and not posts. Well, you could still target individual posts if you wanted to. Like I said, you can search for these or just click on the post you want to use. And so you really do have complete control over where this pop-up appears. You can You can target individual posts. You can exclude individual posts. You can target individual pages and exclude individual pages. And then, one step up, you can exclude or include post types, and you can include and exclude whole categories. So I'm just going to go back and say display and everything, keep it simple, and then you're done. You've gone through all 3 steps. You have chosen your list. You've set up your list. You've adjusted the design to match your website. And finally, you've chosen where you want this opt-in form to display on your website. And since we're making a pop-up, we've decided when we want that pop-up to display on the specific pages that it has been chosen for. And once you've gone through all 3 steps, simply click Save and Exit, and you're done. You've created your very first opt-in. And now this will take you back to the active opt-ins page that we first started on. And when we started, we didn't have any active opt-ins, but now that we've created one, you can see it here. And you can come back to this page and manage this opt-in at any time. So if you decided you want to actually, adjust any of those settings, not a problem. Just click on the settings icon here, and you're going to be taken back to that page you were just at. And you can go to the design settings, you can go to the display settings, and adjust whatever you like, and then save and exit when you're done. Now, there's also some other icons here, and I'm going to talk about each of these icons briefly. So we went over the settings icon. This can be used to adjust the settings of your opt-in at any time. Next up is the delete option. So if you want to delete this opt-in, you don't want it anymore, you can delete it. And you can also duplicate it. So you've gone through all this work, designing your opt-in, making it perfect, and you want to duplicate it and create a new opt-in, but you don't want to go through all that design process again. Not a problem. Click the duplicate icon and you can duplicate that opt-in. And not only can you duplicate it, you can duplicate it into a different opt-in type, which is really great. So I just created a pop-up, but let's say I wanted to next create a matching fly-in. Well, I can press duplicate and then just duplicate it right into a fly-in. And you're done. So now you have two opt-ins, and they look exactly the same. They use the same design options. Everything is matching and perfect. And now that you've duplicated it, you can go in and adjust the settings some more. So now I have this duplicated fly-in. I can go in and adjust these settings if I like. And you can also change the name. So I might want to change this to fly-in. And you might want to adjust the display settings. So, you probably don't want to have a pop-up and fly-in displayed on everything. So I might just display this on my home page. Okay, so now we've gone over duplication. I've just duplicated a pop-up into a fly-in. Now I have a pop-up and a fly-in opt-in. Next up is the deactivate button. This will deactivate the opt-in without deleting it, which is great, so we can save it for later. So I've created a pop-up, I've duplicated it into a fly-in. Now I have these 2 opt-in forms on my site, but I decided, I really don't want the fly-in, but I might use it in the future. I can just disable it, and it'll be added down here into the inactive opt-ins list, and they will not show up on your website. And at any point, you can reactivate those by clicking the check mark here. And finally, we have the split testing option. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because it's deserving of its own tutorial. And in fact, we've already created a tutorial about split testing, also known as A/B testing. And so be sure to check out that split testing tutorial, and I'll go over in detail how all this works and how you can use it to really increase your conversion rates. But let me just go over what split testing is. So split testing basically is a way of creating different variations of your opt-in form and displaying those different variations to different visitors, and then collecting statistics about how each of those variations are performing, and then when you're done, choosing the most effective opt-in. So let's say you have this pop-up, which I've created, and it has this blue background color. But you know what? I want to say, well, what would happen if I change that blue to this bright red? Would that bright red color actually be more effective because it's more eye-catching? Well, we don't have to leave that up to guessing. We can just test it. We can create a split test and have one blue opt-in and one red opt-in. Let those be shown to different visitors automatically. And then once we've had enough, data collected, we can see, the conversion rates diverge and see which one becomes more effective. So let me just show you how to do that. I'm going to click the split testing option, and then I'm going to click the add variant button. And then you can go right in and start adding your new variation. So you can give it a new name. I might call it pop-up red. And then you're going to go over to the design settings. So it's already duplicated your pop-up. It has all the same settings, and you can just go in and kind of tweak things. So I'm just going to change this to red and save. So now I have two pop-ups, my blue one, and then I have this variant, which is my pop-up red. And so I have these two different pop-ups. I'd like to see which one is better. And so I'm just going to click the start test. And then you're done. The test is running now. These two pop-ups are being displayed to different visitors. And over time, you're going to see which one has the best conversion rate. And all of your stats, your conversion rate stats, are displayed right here in your active opt-ins list. So you can see how many times the pop-up has been viewed. That's the impressions. You can see how many conversions each pop-up has. That's how many people have subscribed to your list. And then finally, you can see the conversion rate, which represents how effective that pop-up is, how many conversions have been made based on how many impressions have been made. And that's really the stat you want to pay attention of. The one that has the highest conversion rate, that's the one you want to use. And at any time, you can pause this test if you like, and that'll stop it. The variants won't be shown, just the main one will be shown. And you can re-enable it. And when you're all done, you can click end and pick the winner. Pick whichever one has the highest conversion rate. And so that's the basic overview of split testing, but you can do so much more than just change the color, right? You can change the way the pop-up is being triggered. So you can say, well, I have these two pop-ups. One is being displayed at the bottom of the post, and one is being displayed automatically after 5 seconds. We can see, well, which one is actually more effective? You know, we don't have to leave this up to guessing. We can just test it and see. And you might find that that pop-up at the bottom of the post is more effective because it's only hitting the most engaged users, whereas the pop-up that's being displayed automatically is actually annoying your most engaged users. But, you know, I don't know the answer. It really depends on your visitors, and so you should just test it. And that's what split testing is. Okay, so that goes over how to create an opt-in, how to manage that opt-in within your active opt-ins tab. And so the next thing I'm going to do is go over these other areas of the dashboard here. So that's our active opt-ins tab. Next over is the import and export tab. So this is an easy way just to simply import and export your opt-ins that you've created from and to different websites. So if you spent a lot of time on your website, you've created this great opt-in system and all these different opt-ins, and they're working really well, and then you go to create a new website, you don't want to start from scratch, no problem. Just export your opt-ins here, log into your new website, install Bloom, and then import them. You're done. It's easy. Next is the accounts tab. So do you remember when we first made that opt-in? During that first step, we added an Aweber account. Well, you can see now that I added that account, it appears in my accounts tab here, along with all the different other accounts I've added. In fact, I've added every single account here, so you can see them all and link them with our test lists. So you can also add new accounts right from this menu. So if you don't want to do it during the opt-in creation process, you can come here and you can manage all your lists. So this Aweber account that I just added, you can go in here and modify the authorization code. You can trash it, get rid of it. And you can also see the status of each one. So this green check mark means that you've successfully linked it. You've successfully authorized that account. It's all good to go, and Bloom now has access to add lists to it. So just as an example, I'm going to trash this Aweber list and start over. So I'm going to add this account all over again. So I'm going to come in here. It's going to look just like it did when we created our opt-in and we added that account originally, but it's just we can now do it through this accounts tab instead at any time. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to create a new opt-in just to add a new account. That would be silly. So if you want to add a new account without making a new opt-in, then you go to the accounts tab here. So I'm going to click on the Aweber account type. Once again, I'm going to name it Aweber account. I'm going to follow the instructions here, click to generate my authorization code. I'm going to click the Allow Access button and copy and paste that API key and authorize. Well, before I do that, I'm going to show you what happens if you authorize incorrectly. So I'm actually going to use the wrong code here. Well, since I used the wrong code, it's going to say authorization failed. Okay, that's no good. And if I save and exit right now, you're going to see that that check mark is actually gone. You get a little red circle here. That means this account has not been successfully authorized. It's not going to work in your list. You have to follow the instructions correctly and input the correct API key. And like I said, we have a whole tutorial on this that goes through the correct steps to take for every single opt-in, for every single account type. Usually it's pretty easy. Usually all you have to do is log into your account, copy and paste the API key, and you're done. But like I said, if you input the wrong API key, it's just not going to work. So let me start over. I'm going to add that Aweber account. I'm going to generate the code. I'm going to copy and paste this correctly this time. And if you've done everything correctly, you're going to get a success message here with a list of all your accounts. Save and exit, and you can see Aweber has now been added. So that's how you add accounts. Simply go to the Accounts tab, click the New Accounts button, select your account type, and then follow the steps for authorization. And once an account has been added, you're going to be able to access that account when you create new opt-ins. So like I said, I have Aweber, MailChimp, MadMimi. I have all these accounts enabled. And so when I go over to my opt-ins tab and I create a new opt-in, I'm going to get a list of all these accounts. So if I select MailChimp, well, then I'm going to see my MailChimp account right here, and I'm going to see all the lists that I have in my MailChimp account, and so on. So once you've created an account and authorized it, those lists and those accounts will show up within the opt-in creation process. Okay, finally we have our Stats tab. This is where you can see all the stats related to your opt-ins, which is really great. You can see the overall conversion rate for all your opt-ins. You can see how many subscribers you have. You can see the growth rate, how many subscribers you're getting per week. You can take a look at your individual opt-ins and see how well those are doing. Look at the conversion rate of those specific opt-ins. You can get a graph of your sign-up rate, so you can see kind of like the trends of your sign-ups. You can do that by days or months, and you can choose which lists you want to look at. You can get here's a whole list of all my lists. So like I said, I create all those accounts. Here's all the lists I have from all my different accounts, and I can see how many subscribers I have to each list, and also how fast each one of those is growing. Okay, so we've now gone over the 4 different tabs in the Bloom settings panel. The Stats tab, which you can use to view the conversion rate and total subscriber count of all your opt-ins, as well as delve into individual opt-in stats and individual list stats. We've gone over the Account tab that you can use to add new mailing list accounts, as well as manage the current accounts you have, and even see a list of all the lists associated with those accounts, their subscriber counts, and the growth rate of each list. So here's the Aweber account that I just added, and once you add an account here, you can then apply it to an opt-in. Next, we have our Import and Export tab. Here you can export opt-ins from one website and import them into another website. And finally, we have the Opt-ins Management tab, where you can manage your active and inactive opt-ins, as well as create new opt-in forms. So we've gone through all this long process of explaining all the different settings, and I've created a pop-up, but we never actually got to see that pop-up on our website. So I think we should enjoy the fruits of our labor and take a look at that pop-up. So if you remember, we created a pop-up, we customized the settings, added a nice blue color, added the orange border, and then we move on to the display settings, and we said, I want this pop-up to be displayed everywhere, and I want it to be displayed when someone reaches the bottom of a post. So if we visit our home page and scroll down to the bottom of the post, we'll see that pop-up that we created. So let's do that. I'm going to go to our main page and scroll down. And as you can see, that blue and orange pop-up is displayed just like we created it, just like I envisioned it. Okay, so going back to the form, the active opt-ins page, I want to go through that process again and just show you how easy it really is to create these opt-ins once you understand the process. So I'm not going to go through all the settings again. I'm just going to create some new opt-ins and show you how they work. So we have our pop-up. Well, in addition to the pop-up, I want to create a new fly-in opt-in as well. So I'm going to click the new opt-ins button. I'm going to click the fly-in type. I'm going to name it fly-in, and then I'm going to assign a list to it. I'm going to assign that Aweber account and that we just added and choose the list. Moving on, I'm going to choose a template that looks nice to me. I like this template here, it looks great, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to preview it, and it looks so good to me. I don't think I needed to change anything. It really looks great, so I'm just going to move on to the display settings. Now here's where we control where the fly-in appears and when it appears. So just like the pop-up, I'm just going to display it on everything, and I'm going to have it pop up or fly in at the bottom of the post. And I'm going to save and exit. Okay, so now you see that fly-in opt-in has been added. We now have a pop-up and a fly-in that's displaying on all of our pages when someone reaches the bottom of the post. So let's go take a look at that fly-in now. If we scroll down, you can see there's our pop-up and there's our fly-in that we just added. Looks just like the preview. But you know what? I don't think that there's really a point to having a fly-in and a pop-up being triggered at exactly the same time. It's kind of redundant. So I'm going to go back and adjust that a bit. I'm going to adjust these display settings. In fact, I want the pop-up to be displayed in our home page and only our home page, and I want the fly-in to be displayed everywhere else. So I'm going to go into the pop-up here, and I'm going to say display settings, display only on the home page. I don't want it to display anywhere else. I'm going to deselect these and just keep the home page selected and then save. So now we have this pop-up only being displayed on the home page, and the fly-in. You know what? Actually, I want the fly-in just to be displayed on all of our other posts. Like I want all of our blog posts. So I'm going to uncheck everything and just have this be displayed on posts. And if we save and exit, so now we have a pop-up being displayed on our main page and a fly-in being displayed in all of the rest of our posts. So if we go over to the home page, scroll down, we're going to get that pop-up, but we're not going to get the fly-in because we disabled the fly-in on the home page. And if we go over to a post, well, you're gonna see the fly-in because we enabled that on posts, but we're not going to see the pop-up because we disabled that. I think this is a much better system. Like I said, no reason to have those both being displaying at the same time on our whole website. So looking at this post, I think I want to add an opt-in form at the bottom of the post. I think it's a great way to get new subscribers. So I'm going to go back and create a new opt-in form. And I want it to look just like my fly-in. I want to have some design cohesiveness on that post, right? And so I'm going to duplicate this fly-in and just turn it into a below the post opt-in. So I'm going to select the below the post type, which displays an opt-in box below the post, right above the comments and below the post. And so I'm going to edit this and just call it below post. And that's it. I'm done. All right, there's no reason to adjust any more settings. I like the design, so I'm going to go back to this page and refresh. And you'll see that we now have this box at the bottom of the post, and we have our fly-in as well. And if I were to refresh the page or visit a new post, let's visit a new post, I would see the same thing. I would get this, and I get the pop-up again, or the fly-in again. But you know what? Looking at this, I think this is pretty aggressive. This might get a little annoying to our readers who are going from post to post. I think I want to keep this below the post opt-in on all the posts, but I only wanted to display this fly-in after someone comments. So I'm going to go back, going to adjust this fly-in and go over to the load-in settings. And I want to take away this trigger at the bottom of the post and say, just trigger after commenting. So we have that below the post already. No reason to do a fly-in below the post as well. Might be a little aggressive, but if someone's really engaged in comments as well, might as well hit them up with that fly-in as well. Try to give them that extra, punch and hope they subscribe. So I'm going to trigger after commenting instead. Save and exit. Go back to our post and refresh. So now we have this opt-in form below the post, but that fly-in is no longer being triggered at the bottom of the post. It's only going to be triggered after someone comments. So if I really like the post and I comment, come back to the page. Oh, I get the nice little notification. Hey, why don't you subscribe? So that's just an example of creating 3 different opt-ins, having them shown on different pages and to different visitors based on their user interactions. And I think we have a really great system going here. On our main page, we have the big pop-up. Lots of our visitors are coming through the main page. They see that big pop-up, but when they delve into the posts, no need to hit them up with that pop-up over and over again as they explore the site, right? So instead, we just created this below the post opt-in and this fly-in opt-in. So as you can see, there's a lot of great ways that we can combine different opt-in types on a single website. And so that really concludes kind of the basic overview of Bloom. I've gone over how to create an opt-in, how to create an account. I've gone over the different design and display settings within the opt-in creation process. But like I said, this has really been just a basic overview. There's so much more to learn and explore, and there's so many creative ways that you can use these opt-ins, especially in conjunction with each other, as I kind of shown you just now, as you kind of mess with the different display settings and the different triggers. And so I really encourage you, if you have any questions or you want to learn more, go back to our documentation page and check out all the different kind of in-depth tutorials that we have. So I've created an in-depth tutorial just for the different design settings, and where I kind of explore how those design settings can be used effectively to create really beautiful templates, and how the different design settings might be more effective in certain combinations for certain opt-in types. Like certain form orientations I think look better in a pop-up, and other form orientations I think look better in a fly-in. So you can kind of play with those settings, and if you want to learn more, go check out that design settings tutorial. If you want to learn more about the triggers, I touched on each of the triggers, but I didn't really talk about how you can use these effectively in conjunction with each other. And I think that there's a lot that can be done with triggers to really improve your conversion rate. So I encourage you to go to the triggers tutorial and learn more about how to really make those pop-ups and fly-ins incredibly effective. And I also have a tutorial that goes over the account creation process in absolute detail. So I go over every different account type and how to go through the authorization steps to create those accounts and sync them with Bloom. So I encourage you to go check out that tutorial if you're having any kind of problems, syncing your different mailing list software with Bloom. And as always, if you have any questions, be sure to open a ticket in the forum, and we're going to be happy to help you out.